Lucky, this is one of Harry Dean Stanton's last screen roles.
Oh, yeah, I've seen all the posters for that.
Yeah, it's this melancholic portrait of a stubborn old-timer in his twilight days. He's lucky. That's what he's known as, Lucky. We see him in the morning. He gets up. He does his exercises in his pants and his vest. He smokes a cigarette. He heads out to the diner where he has a cup of coffee and sits and does the crossword. He goes home to watch his game shows and, he watches them whilst at the same time thinking that they're foolish. And then he heads off to the bar where he hangs out with a series of kind of misfit buddies. One of these is Howard, played by David Lynch, who is distressed because his pet tortoise, President Roosevelt, has run away. Want to hear a clip?
Yeah, I certainly do.
Here we go.
Calling him out of his last dime just to leave everything to a turtle?
Tortoise! He's a tortoise. You know that saguaro near your yard? That thing was barely a twig when Roosevelt was born. They're contemporaries, you know. They watched each other grow up. President Roosevelt was born in a hole in the desert. At that time, a little creature smaller than my thumb. And something clicked inside that little Roosevelt brain, and he scampered up out of that hole and faced the world. You all think of a tortoise as something slow, but I think about the burden he has to carry on his back. Yeah, it's for protection, but ultimately it's the coffin he's going to get buried in. And he has to drag that thing around his entire life? Go ahead and laugh. But he affected me. You know what I'm saying? He affected me. There are some things in this universe, ladies and gentlemen, that are bigger than all of us. And a tortoise is one of them.
The unmistakable voice of David Lynch.
I wanted to hear some Harry Dean in there.
One of the reasons that there isn't is that it's fairly low on dialogue, as Harry Dean Stanton's character, Lucky, doesn't say that much. And in fact, in the two clips that we were given, I think there's just a little bit of him. You heard him at the beginning going, and then that's it. And then we get into the thing. So the film's directed by Carrol Lynch, written by Logan Sparks and Drago Sumonja. And it is a series of those kind of meetings. He goes into the diner. He meets Tom Skerritt's Fred, who's a veteran, a war veteran, World War II veteran, with whom he has a conversation in which they discuss the horrors of war and a conversation about that character's encounter with a smiling Buddhist girl who was smiling as she faced death. And so hanging over the whole thing is a sort of discussion about imminent and approaching death. And in some ways, it resembles David Lynch's film, The Straight Story, particularly that discussion with the veteran, which very closely mirrors a scene in The Straight Story. Remember, in The Straight Story, there's the old guy, he gets on a tractor because he doesn't have a driver's license, and he drives very, very slowly across country, and he stops at various places and has conversations with people. And there is a sort of slight similarity with that. It also has the kind of rambling, somewhat loose-limbed feel of a Jim Jarmusch movie. Again, Jim Jarmusch is the sort of the master of a frame with a strange, visual construction, a cactus or a road and a character walking through it, and then shipping up in various different areas and having those kind of conversations. And it's like all the way through, although it's a down-to-earth story about a guy on his last hurrah, basically going from place to place, encountering these other people and having discussions that appear to be discussions about nothing, but are actually discussions about the fact that life may be meaningless and there may not be an afterlife. And if that's the case, then what's the point? And the point is that you smile because it is what it is and you live with it. And in that David Lynch thing, although it's funny and absurd because David Lynch's character is talking about his relationship with the tortoise, but he's also saying things, which is that tortoise and I have had a bond, we've had a friendship, and then he starts worrying about, well, the tortoise escaped, maybe that was... So all these discussions that appear to be about nothing are at once about nothing, but they're also about something. And there is a slightly surreal feeling to it. I mean, the scenes when they're in the bar, they almost look like a kind of bar out of, I mentioned Jim Jarmusch or Tom DiCillo, but they have that kind of weird, slightly theatrical thing that a David Lynch movie would have, that there are conversations which are oddly philosophical with gaps between them which make them feel theatrical. And it's a bit it's a bit Twin Peaksy in that, but it's also got that kind of just that sense of melancholy. And I thought it was really charming. I mean, it's a movie which is very gentle, and it's a movie which tugs at the heartstrings without being sort of overtly sentimental. And there is a real theatricality in the dialogue. Sometimes when people are doing some performances, you think, is that bad acting? Or is that acting that is arch in a way that kind of makes you... But it never took me out of the drama. I did think that I was, watching this guy who'd lived this sort of full life, approaching the end of his life and looking back on it with that sort of sense of melancholy. I thought it was rather charming, and I enjoyed it very much. And it's called Lucky. And you said you've seen posters for it everywhere with that picture of Harry Dean Stanton.
Looking just the same as he does in pretty much every picture.
Can I tell you very quickly my Harry Dean Stanton story?
It depends how long it's...
It'll be really quick. I interviewed Harry Dean Stanton for the Alien documentary that I made some years ago, back in 2001. And it was very hard to get hold of because he doesn't really like doing interviews. He's very interested in music. Anyway, he had agreed to be interviewed by him for about 5 minutes. And I was asking him these questions about Alien, and he was giving me like monosyllabic answers because he really wasn't that interested in... He would be more interested in talking about harmonicas or singing. And at one point I said to him, because everyone, if you talk to them about Alien, you asked them about the set, because the set was enormous, the set was extraordinary, being in the set was extraordinary. Everyone I had asked, I said, what's it like being on that set? And then they would go into some story about it. And so I said to Harry Dean Stanton, I said, what was it like being on the set? The incredible set, absolutely huge set. And he walked onto it, what was it like? And he looked at me and he went, the set. And I said, yeah. What was it like? He said, what was it like? And I went, yeah. And he went, did you see the film? I said, yeah. He said, it was like that.
Very good.
Okay.
But if you're Harry Dean Stanton,
you can get away with it,
with a certain amount of style. And that was an anecdote that I don't think we'd heard before.
Very good.
So that's
okay.
very